kind of give us a little overview on who you are? I know I kind of just touched on like Spokane Chiefs and Spokane Indians, but kind of just give us an overview of who Mike is.
Well, let me see. Where do I start? Born and raised back in Maryland. My dad was in the Air Force when I was young. Uh, Mom started to work when I was about 8 years old. Um, she, my parents separated. I ended up going to Colorado when I was 13. We settled in Fort Collins, just up the road from where you are. And
Yes.
I ended up going and graduating from Fort Collins High School, and then went to Colorado State University and did my 4 years there, and then started into a career of broadcasting. And my first job was in Boise, Idaho, working at the CBS called KBCI at that time, now known back to its former call letters of KBOI. I worked in production. Couldn't get an on-air job anywhere. I mean, I looked a lot of places, believe me. Couldn't get on the air. So I said, I might as well just get into the business and learn it. So that's what I did. I went behind the scenes for 2 years in Boise, and I got my first on-air job in Lamar, Colorado, at the mighty 920 KLMR AM. And I did a year as a sports director there. And then I went back to Boise, and I started doing on-air work as a cable sports guy, doing Boise State games, and did play-by-play for Boise State football, men's and women's basketball, gymnastics, tennis. I mean, anything I could get my hands on. And I did that for probably 3 years, close to 4 years that I did that. And it led into some opportunities to do national championships with the NAIA with men's basketball. Got to go nationwide doing that. And then I got my first sports television gig filling in Boise. And both of the sports guys were gone a particular weekend. I went and did it. And then I started kind of doing that during the summers for probably 3 or 4 weekends. And I got offered the job as the executive producer for Boise State Sports in 1996. And I accepted the offer. And so I was going over the ABC station in Boise, handled at the time, Don Jensen, who I'd worked with on live broadcasts doing the Milk Bowl, the Idaho State Championships and such. And the station I worked at, CBS, decided, we're going to offer you the weekend sports job. So I called some friends of mine and said, should I take this job or should I stick with the executive producer job? And I called 4 guys in the business that I totally respected. And every single one of them told me, said, take the sports job, take the weekend sports job. And I did. And I'm glad I did, because I did that for 2 years. And then I went to Tucson, Arizona, and worked at the CBS down there. And then I left there and went to KXLY in Spokane and worked with Rick Lukens and Dennis Patchen for a couple of years before I took the Chiefs job in 2002. And I've been in Spokane ever since.
That is what's up. Rick, Dennis, all of them, Keith, every single one of them. Those are my favorite. I tell this story. People that know me know. I used to text into their radio show all the time. I used to call in for buy or sell. They, the reason why I do what I do now is because of them. So I really appreciate them. And so I'm glad you brought them up. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit. Give me some influences in your life that got you into broadcasting.
Well, I was lucky. When I was a kid growing up outside of Baltimore, I got to listen to a Hall of Fame announcer, Chuck Thompson, who did both the Baltimore Orioles and the
Yeah.
Colts. And as nice a human being as he was, great a broadcaster. I mean, had the chance to meet him in the mid 80s when the Orioles were playing in Seattle at the Kingdom. And it was like a lifelong dream come true for me to meet him, because he just had that classic voice. And I recommend to people, if you look him up on YouTube and listen to his calls, I mean, it's legendary is the first word I can use for him. Harry Callis in Philadelphia was another guy. He did the Phillies. He did a lot of work with NFL Films. and you still hear his voice every once in a while. Got to meet him as well. The Phillies were playing in Phoenix against the Diamondbacks one time, and I went up to say hi to him, Harry Callis, and he had a great voice. I mean, just a classic sports announcer voice. So those two really were big influences. And then Gene Hart, the voice of the Flyers in Philadelphia, legend as well. He kind of gave me a barometer of what I needed to do as a hockey announcer if I ever went into that. Just listening to him and the excitement that he brought to the game. And he just kind of let the story flow. He showed me what an art form it is to call hockey. And it is. I think, as much as calling a baseball game, but in a different way, because you're having to tell a story in an accelerated fashion as compared to more of a pastoral feel with baseball. So,
Yes.
that I kind of, leaned on those three guys growing up as a kid. And no question, they were the biggest influences on me.
Okay, that's what's up. I think influences like the people that influence you in your life are very important, and so that's why I always like to ask that question because sometimes I don't know who these people are, and I feel like I should know who these people are. So I always try to take notes. But okay, so I know you just touched on it again just a little bit ago, but how do you know the differences, like the intricacies of like hockey compared to baseball? Like, did you play hockey growing up? Did you know it? Did you play baseball? How did that go?
Well, baseball was my big sport as a kid. My dad was a baseball player and a coach. So I was around it all the time. He did some semi-pro games I can remember going to as a kid and watching him on the weekends play. He was a very good baseball player. And he was the real big influence when it came to baseball. That's a game that is just ingrained in me. He tells me stories of when I was a baby, he put a baseball in the crib with me. So that game I've just kind of always been drawn to. And that was the first sport I started playing as a kid. Hockey came a little later. Honestly, that came about because there was a Webster Pond, which is kind of like a small body of water, which was outside of Havre de Grace where I grew up. I remember going up there. It would freeze over in the wintertime, and the kids would go out and skate around on it. And I saw that when I was like 8, and I said, I want to do that. I want to learn how to skate and to do that. And it just kind of gravitated, got a hockey set. Then I started playing street hockey, and I really became a big hockey junkie probably when I was 10 to 15. But I never played organized games in hockey. So, I mean, my knowledge of the sport in that respect is behind what I had in baseball. I was playing football, was playing basketball, was playing lacrosse. I mean, I was doing a lot of different sports, learned to play tennis. But hockey was the one sport that I really enjoyed, but I never really got into playing. So when it came to my broadcasting, when I got into both hockey and baseball, I was a little behind the curve in hockey and kind of had to do some education to really do it well on radio. Baseball, on the other hand, could do it in my sleep. I mean, I've been around it, and I'm confident enough to where I can go in to any manager or coach and talk on their level about the game.
Okay. That is super awesome. Okay, so give us like what does a day look like when you wake up to when you go to the arena for the Spokane Chiefs?
Well, since I just did it yesterday, it's pretty fresh in my mind. We basically, a lot of my work comes earlier in the week. Like we played Kelowna yesterday. I started looking at their stuff on Sunday. And so I went through stats, went through their roster, any questions that I had in my mind about the team that I was going to pose to their broadcaster, Regan Bartel. I formed that day and night. When it came to Actual stat work, I did that day of, and that usually starts sometime after lunch. And I'll just spend the afternoon before I have to pick up my kids at school at 3, just going through their power play, their penalty kill, goaltending, individual forwards and D. And then when it gets about, well, if it's a 7 o'clock game, usually I head down to the arena about 5 o'clock. Any pregame interviews that I do in the morning. Excuse me. I will go down to the morning skate that the team usually has, and that's generally 10 o'clock in the morning on average. And I'll get together with the coach that I'm going to interview or any player that I'm going to do in the intermission, and I'll do the interviews then. So by the time I go to the arena at 5 o'clock, I'm dialed in and ready to go. I have the gear set up, and we plug in, and at 6:15 call into the radio station. 6:30 we're on the air, and away we go.
Who have been some of your favorite Spokane Chief players?
Oh boy, there've been a few.
Give me three of your, maybe of like the ones that just when you think about Spokane Chiefs, you think about them.
Well, it's funny. People would think that it would be a lot of big name guys. Not necessarily the case. One kid that I always enjoyed calling the games for and watching was Adam Beckman. He was just with the Chiefs up until 2021. He's now playing with Utica, the New Jersey Devils AHL affiliate, and I just really liked him as a person, and we would talk a lot off of the ice, and talk about what his goals were in life, and he would ask me about my career and such, and I still keep in touch with Bex, even though he's been gone for 3 years. Another one, Chris Bruton, who was the captain of the 2008 Memorial Cup team.
Yes.
Brutes, another fantastic kid that I just, hit it off with off the ice. And every time he comes back to town, we get together and talk. And just a super individual and for my money, the best captain that the Chiefs franchise has ever had. I mean, he was just a natural leader and was a big reason why that team came away with that Memorial Cup that year. You get to some other kids that I really enjoyed. Mitch Wall was another one that played with Brutes at that time. Justin Falk was another one that played at that time. And Tyler Johnson, obviously the biggest name that comes out. Johnny, just signed with Boston, made his debut with the Bruins last night. But I'll drop text to him every once in a while and let him know that, he's looking great and looking forward to seeing him back in Spokane. But yeah, I mean, those guys right off the top, and I mean, there's a longer list. I'm leaving guys off, but those guys right off the top are the guys that I really, enjoy talking with and seeing again.
But okay, let's transition off of that a little bit. What is your favorite memory or like your favorite moment that you have called?
Oh boy. Honestly, the one that sticks out to me was when the Chiefs won the Western Hockey League title in '08 in Lethbridge. That Game 4 win when they swept the Hurricanes and won the league title. Such a mixture of emotions came over me. The joy of watching those kids' faces that most had been with the team 2 years previous when they were the worst team in the league. I mean, they finished at the bottom of the league with 58 points. And 2 years later, put themselves on top of the mountain with that win in Lethbridge. And people go, well, what about the Memorial Cup? I said, yeah, the Memorial Cup was kind of anticlimactic for me because winning the league was like, okay, we've reached the top. Oh, this is kind of just a dessert or a cherry on top, playing in the Memorial Cup. And there was zero expectation and zero kind of wanting from my end of saying, oh, we have to win this. Whereas winning the league was like, wow, look how far we've come in 2 years. And I'll never forget when that puck went behind our net and the kids rose their hands in the air and just the sheer joy that those guys had on the ice and afterwards in the locker room, on the bus ride home to Spokane. I'll never forget that. That will be something I take with me to my grave, and I can still see their faces as clear today as it was in 2008.
What is your favorite part about, let's go to a little baseball here real quick. What's your favorite part about going to the ballpark? When you wake up in the morning, what is it that brings you coming back every single year? Like,
what isn't my favorite part of going to the ballpark? I mean, it's, how do I describe it by saying it doesn't feel like work to me anyway. It feels like, hey, it's another day at the ballpark. And when you have the love of the game that I have, it's not a job. I mean, it's just like, hey, what can we see tonight in this game? And the great thing about baseball, and I think more than any other sport, just when you think you've seen it all, there's something different that's going to pop up that night that after 50 years, I'll go, I've never seen that happen before. And that's the great joy for me, is watching the type of plays and events that take place on that diamond every night is magical for me. And settling into that booth in the ballpark, getting ready for a pregame show is the best. It's the best. And then when that first pitch hits and it's like you're in the game, it feels like I'm on a cloud and I'm just above the world looking down and just enjoying life. And that's the best way I can put it. It's ideal. Even if the team has a bad game, I don't walk out of there thinking, and just feeling miserable about life. I mean, I think, how wonderful this is that I get to watch this sport and bring it to people over the airwaves on radio or on the internet and describe how this game is being played. It's the best. That's all I can tell you.
most definitely. You are definitely one of the best to do it. I told you this before. You have the best job. Like anybody that gets to call baseball for a living, you get to go to a ballpark every single day for a whole summer. Like that is the best position. Okay, so people know I'm here in Denver. Rockies. A lot of people
Yep.
feeling really down about what's going on over here in Denver and things like that. But we're here to give people hope.
Yeah.
Explain this past season and maybe some key players that we should be watching for over here in Denver that should be coming up soon.
Well, I've told my friends in Colorado, and I still have a number there, and they're big Rockies fans, and believe me, I hear about it, what's going on with the team in Denver. I just tell them, I said, there's hope on the way, okay? I get to watch everyone that's coming up. I watched Brent Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar here through 2021. Michael Tolio was here. Hunter Goodman and Drew Romo were here in 2022. I mean, these guys are foundational pieces now for this club going forward. And you know what? A couple of them are Gold Glovers. And Aaron Schunk, who was here in 2021, now up at the major league level. Ryan Feltner was here in 2021. I looked at the club, what we've had this year, and I tell you what, there's some guys that'll be in Denver within a couple of years that fans can be excited about. And Chase Dolander, the number one pick of the Rockies last year, I can tell you, I know a little about pitching. This guy's a stud. I mean, he's just going to get better. And that's the thing that I was watching him dominate at this level, and he continued to do so at Double-A Hartford. And I'm thinking, he's just going to get better because his off-speed stuff is going to improve. He's going to be able to locate more regularly once he finds that consistency with his slider or his curveball. He's going to be fun to watch because his fastball is elite. I mean, like top 2% elite at a major league level. Sean Sullivan's another kid. He's the number 2 pick that year behind Dolander out of Wake Forest. Great strike thrower. I mean, he's a control guy that continually gets ahead of hitters. It's 0-1, 1-2 all the time. And he threw the only complete game in the league this year. Lost it. Gave up a home run and lost 1-0.
Really?
But he dominated that game. I mean, he was just a strike machine. And you look at what he did in Spokane, 81 strikeouts, 5 walks. Now, who's doing that at a major league level? I can tell you, nobody.
Yeah.
He's going to be special. Just a great strike thrower that understands how to pitch. I look at Kyle Karros. Eric Karros, former Los Angeles Dodger, his son played here this year, MVP of the league, and there was no question about it. He was awarded a Gold Glove in the minor leagues at third base. Best fielding third baseman in the league, and it wasn't close. And his approach to hitting was beyond high A. I mean, he understood 2 strike counts. He understood how to work pitchers. He came within 1 home run of winning the Triple Crown, which he would have been just the second player in Northwest League history since it started in 1955 to have done that. And he lost out to Cole Carrig, his teammate.
Yes.
Who's another kid that has tremendous talent. Had the best arm in the outfield of any outfielder I've seen since Brent Doyle. I mean, he's got that type of arm in center field. He can run like the wind. He finished second in the league, stole over 50 bases. He wins the league home run title. And honestly, if it weren't for Kyle Karros, Cole Carrig would have been the MVP of the league this year. So he's another kid that you keep your eye on him because he's going to be very, very good and in the major leagues in a relatively short period of time. A lot of talent that came through this year, and there's going to be some guys that are back. I look at what they have coming up from Fresno as well for next year. They got some studs coming up
Really, yes.
as well. And I just tell people, look, just be patient. And the thing that's encouraging for me, the Rockies have a plan to move these guys along to where they're all going to come together. They'll take their lumps at the major league level for a couple, 3 years, okay? They're not going to come in and just turn the thing around. But I'm just saying, we're going on 2025. By 2027, this club will be contending. And I'm not talking about the division for the National League. This club will be contending. I have no doubt in my mind. I've seen the talent. It's going to be there.
My sales manager, Tanner, is going to be so enthused when he watches this. I'm telling you. He's the biggest Rockies fan that I know. And I don't watch I don't want to say I watch every Mariner game, but I'm watching at least 100 games a year. I kind of know what's going on. I don't really know. I don't watch every day. I don't really know what is going on particularly. So I always refer to him and he just says it's really bad. And so I'm like, I believe you. I believe you if it's really, but I say this all the time. And I've said this on the radio multiple times in the last couple months. You just got to give it time. The people that are down with the Spokane Indians, they're going to come up. And we're going to be totally fine. We just got to give it time. So I'm glad that you said that, and I really appreciate that. Okay, tell us about this past season. They won the whole thing. When did you kind of know that this season might be special? How did it go down to you? What were your just overall thoughts about it?
Well, I had a pretty good feeling by June that they were going to be at least playing for the championship. And the whole goal is to just get to that championship series and then let the chips fall where they may over those 5 games. The Northwest League is unique in that it only has 6 teams in it. So you don't have a divisional round of playoffs and then the championship series. You get the first half winner against the second half winner right to a best-of-5 championship. So you get in that first half of the season, and that ends in mid-June. It's okay, we're there. We can now gear ourselves up to when September rolls around. The thing that surprised me with this club is that they came out in the second half and they played just as well or better in the second half than they did in the first, which you don't often see. And they went ahead and won the second half title as well. Now, I was still a little reserved going in the championship series because I can recall in 2019 when the league was short season A, Indians won the first half, won the second half, and they went to a best of three divisional series with Tri-City. And they lost
Still
in the
hurts.
third game on a bases loaded walk.
Hurts.
It just and they had lost in the championship the year before in 2018 in Eugene. Emmanuel Class A balked off the winning run in that championship. So I had that scar behind me, and I'm thinking, okay, we can just get there. Indians split the first two games in Vancouver, and I said, okay, we're in pretty good shape because we're at least coming back home having to win 2 of 3. And we had been very good all year long at home. And this club, they just found ways to win. Even if they were outpitched or outhit or just didn't execute as well, they'd find ways to win. And that's exactly what they did in games 3 and 4 against Vancouver. They made the big pitches when they needed to. They got a couple of big hits to win in game 3, 3-2, and then they win it on a bases loaded hit by pitch in the 10th in game 4. And it was Kyle Karros at the plate who drew that. So it didn't surprise me. Once we got to game 4, I said, you know what, this team's just going to find a way. And they did. And first ring I've won in baseball after covering this Northwest League for 30 plus years. It was like stunning to watch and to have happen. But the part that I'll remember the most about this team, they were just as much fun to be around in the clubhouse and on the road as they were calling them on the field. I mean, just a great group of guys, and enjoyed every single one of them. And I just wish them nothing but the best and hoping to keep in touch with some as the years go by.
Could you, if you can't, that's totally fine. Could you maybe give us like a clubhouse story or maybe like a bus story or something like that? That was just obviously, if it's not, if you can't, or if you don't have any appropriate ones, that's totally fine. We can move on. But
I don't ride the bus during the summer. With the hockey team, I ride the bus because I don't feel like dealing with the mountain passes. But summertime, I drive myself. So the only times I really see the guys are in the hotel before the game and such. But, the favorite part for me is my oldest son, Patrick, is a huge baseball nut, just like I was as a kid. And it's fun for me to watch how he hangs around with the guys. And he will sit in the hotel lobbies with them. He'll hang out by the dugout. He'll go down in the bullpen. And just watching how the guys took to him, that was, for me, the biggest stories that I watched during the year. Because I'm an old guy now. I don't hang out like I used to. But watching my kid do it and just the way that they treated him as one of the guys, a lot of fist bumps. They had nicknames for each other. That was a real joy as a parent to see how much that my 14-year-old got to enjoy the season this year.
The teams, the Spokane Indians and the Chiefs are just always they always just get like the perfect players, even if like things don't work out. Like I remember our year, I went to school at Ferris, so like we had Jeff Faith, we had we were all together. We all went to school together. They were just so personable. We were all friends. We kicked it outside of school. Like they are just such like they always find really good people, just really good, genuine people, and I like that because that's the type of place that Spokane is. And so I really feel like the Chiefs and the Indians embody what Spokane is. Does Otto still own both the Spokane Indians and the Chiefs?
Well, I know Otto has a stake in the Indians. I don't know about the Chiefs, but for
Okay.
sure the Indians. And yeah, Otto's my guy. I mean, working with Otto and Chris Duff and Kyle Day, great organization to work with. I can't say enough about it. I just remember the day that Bob Robertson was in Bobby Brett's house and offered me the job to take over the Indians in 2011. My wife cried. I mean, she was so happy that I wasn't having to go down to Tri-Cities every summer and do baseball down there. And it was a great relief for me because Patrick at the time was all of, maybe a year old at that time, and yeah, that was a great moment for me because I knew what a great organization it was, and it has been. It's been everything that I could have imagined and then some. Been terrific to work for them.
It is a top-notch organization for a minor league team. I just A1. I got a couple more for you, and then we can wrap this up. How have you seen your role change over time?
Oh boy, it's changed quite a bit. Social media has changed everything. I do a regular blog with the Chiefs for
Hmm.
the television station I work for, Creme TV. I used to do one on the web page with the Chiefs, but I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. Uh, yeah, I mean, you're having to think of social an awful lot. Like when I get to a ballpark or a rink, I'll get the camera out, and all of a sudden I'm out there shooting it and shooting myself and say, "Here we are," blah blah blah, and you throw it up online, and people are going, "Oh, thanks for posting this." And I just, it gives them a little opportunity to see what you're doing. Uh, that has changed probably the most. The fact that I do everything over the web now. Like when I first started, you just hooked into a phone line and it was just going to the radio station. And
Yes.
that's what you did. Um, and then when everything started going towards the internet and we started getting systems to where you could just plug into a computer line and do the games that way. And then streaming came around and, everything started to be telecast, as it were, over the internet. uh, it's kind of for me taken a little bit of the imagination away because everyone now can sit there and plug in and watch it rather than letting me tell them what it is and leaving it to the power of imagination. So I'm a little sad about that because that's how I grew up listening to games. And it was always just fun to sit there and imagine it in my mind how it looked when Brooks Robinson would make a great diving stop at third base, or Bobby Clark would score a goal. I mean, the guys that were, guys that I looked up to in my childhood, I would just imagine all that. Well, now you can all watch it, and they just plug our radio calls over top of it. So there are people out there probably saying, well, why is he describing it like that? I can see what's going on. And the problem is that I'm having to do it for both mediums now. So that's kind
Multiple.
of changed how I've had to go about things.
Okay, one last question on baseball real quick. What is your thoughts on the pitch clock?
I love it. I do. I don't think that it has affected the game that much because the game I grew up with, guys got the ball and they threw it. They didn't go through all the stuff with the guys in the box getting ready and the pitchers fiddling around and rubbing the ball and then deciding when he's going to throw it. I mean, I can remember watching a game in 1983 in Baltimore. Scott McGregor, who was a very good lefty for the Orioles back in the 70s and early 80s, beat the Angels in an hour and 50 minutes, 2-0. Hour and 50 minutes. There was no pitch clock. He got the ball, bang, he's throwing it in there. And that's how guys did it. Well, somehow in the 90s, it just started to deteriorate. And by the 2000s, it was just out of control. I mean, you couldn't watch a Red Sox Yankees game without it being over 4 hours. That's ridiculous to me that you have to sit there for 4 hours to
Four
watch
hours.
a 9 inning baseball game. And look it up. I mean, go back and look it up. There was a season where they averaged over 4 hours a game in their series that year in 18 games. It was just, it's out of control. So they had to do something because people were getting to a point where they weren't going to the games to watch anymore. Attendance was going down, television revenue was being, affected, and they said we got to get people back in the seats, and they managed to do that. I think the pitch clock of all the innovations they've done has been the best one because now, and I'm being selfish from a broadcaster's perspective, I know that when I go to call a game, that between the pitch clock and the ghost runner on bases in extra innings, I know I'm not going to be there more than 3 hours plus. That's what it's going to be. I mean, you just know now that you're not going to be there 4 hours. You're not going to be there till 1:30 in the morning like I was for an Indians Yakima game back in 2011 when we had to go 16 innings. I mean, that's not going to occur anymore. So for me, I really have enjoyed it. And I haven't met one person in the game itself or in the broadcasting field that have all said, I don't really like this rule. They have all unanimously told me, oh, we love it. So I think, it's here to stay. And people are going to look back 20 years from now and go, what were you guys doing back then?
Yeah, people won't understand those 1-0 Felix Hernandez games that go 3 hours, like go multiple hours for no runs. Like it gets really sad out there, and that's my one thing. I do miss sometimes like the old feel. I grew up. I'm a '98 baby, so like that's when I grew up in that time of like we're going 4 hour games. That's all I know. I don't know anything else other than 4.5 hour games.
Right.
Okay, so I got two more for you real quick.
Right. Right. And you don't miss them, I'm sure.
That's what,
You got it.
yes. What is your why?
I don't know. Why did I get in this business? I've always been drawn to it. I mean, I knew when I was in middle school, junior high age, that if I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player or an NBA player, I wanted to be in sportscasting. That's what I wanted to do. And by the time I got to high school, I already started taking courses that were geared towards that. Speech making, communication, English, media classes. They started having media classes when I was younger. I took everything I could get my hands on. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do. I still have a paper I wrote in 8th grade talking about how I wanted to be a broadcaster for my own team one day. And I worked towards that through college and in my early professional career to doing that. And, as I said, it took me a number of years to become a voice of a team. I was in the profession 18 years before I landed a full-time play-by-play job. So
I think
if there's a picture of perseverance, I'm it.
That is I think I know this is kind of at the end of the podcast, but I think that is very important what you just said. The perseverance factor of just like, sometimes things aren't going to be there, when you think it should be, it's going to all come in due time though. And I like that you said that because that's very important. Don't force your hand.
Absolutely.
Okay, last
Absolutely.
one. This is probably the most important question. What is your definition of success?
Well, definition of success for me is being able to wake up every morning and do exactly what you want to do. If you're able to get into a profession, an occupation that you don't feel like it's work, that you don't feel like that you're trudging off to a job every day, that you feel like you would go and do anyway, for free, that to me is success. I mean, you have made it if you're able to wake up every day and know that I'm doing something that I would do every day for 100 years if I could live that long. And you never feel like, oh man, I can't believe I have to go into work. Believe me, I've known people like that, and they make great money, and they have a nice house and everything that you would term as success. But to me, that's not success. I mean, if you're not happy with what you're doing on a daily basis, you're not going to be happy with a lot of other things in life. And so it's essential in my world that you wake up every day and pursue something that you love doing. And I tell my kids that all the time. And they always say, why do I have to go to school, Dad? Why do I have to do this? I said, because the day's going to come where you're going to need to know these things and apply them to go and do what you want to do with your life. You won't have someone telling you what to do. You can determine how you want to go about doing something. And that to me is the ultimate success. And I think if people focus on that and go out and accomplish that, there'd be a lot more happier people on the planet. And I just do my little bit one person at a time here in the house.
That is so awesome. We have Mike Boyles here with us. Mike, I really appreciate you coming on. This really means a lot, and just thank you for giving us your time.
Absolutely, anytime, and enjoy Denver for me. I do miss Colorado quite a bit, and hope to get back and visit someday.